Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Ontario network of CAPC, CPNP projects, Father Focus Sharing Circle. This is becoming a annual event that we're excited to host and have you be a part of. And just welcome you and hope you enjoy your time with us. Really quickly, my name is Sydney Bell. I'm the Network Program Lead for the Ontario Network of CAPC CPNP projects. And really happy to welcome you here on behalf of the network. Our network brings CAPC and CPNP projects together. There's over 175 of them in Ontario. We regularly provide opportunities for learning, sharing, and connecting like this one. So we're really delighted to have this time with you today. And just want to say that as we come together as a network of CAPC and CPNP projects from across this region of Ontario, I'd like to pause and give some time and gratitude both to the land and to those who have been the traditional keepers and stewards of the land. We are grateful to the First Peoples of the territories where we work and serve for sharing this land, where we support families and communities. And one thing I'll be popping into the chat as we go is actually a Dad Central resource supporting Indigenous fathers' involvement. So I'll share the link to that just as a resource for learning of Indigenous values. And what else did I want to say? Our event today will have two parts. We'll be having a guest presenter, and then we'll be having a panel discussion. And before I turn you over to our hosts for the day, for the morning, I am trying, this is a time when I'm trying new things in my role, and I'm trying a Zoom event survey. So in theory, how it will work when the event ends, you'll be a Zoom survey should pop up in your browser to give your feedback on the event. We'll see if that happens. If I don't get any responses, I have another survey link I will send out after the event, and we appreciate any thoughts or comments that you can give us on what you thought and how we can do better. I think that's enough from me. I am going to step into the background and hand this over to Jack and Tim. And Jack, I invite you to come on and introduce yourselves and take it from here.
Thank you, Sydney. Thank you for introducing and welcoming everyone. Good morning. Thank you all for coming. We're really excited about this event. So my name is Jack Sanna. I'm one of the program consultants in the Ontario region. If any of you, some of you may work with me, professionally. Some of you may have seen me on the Northeast zone call, if you attend there. And I've been, doing the program consultant work, I guess, almost 2 years now, and really enjoying and getting to meet everyone and getting the opportunity to do events like this. So yeah, really excited to be here. Tim, if you want to go.
Yeah, it's great to see everybody, or at least see the names. Maybe later we can get everybody's faces to pop up. No pressure. I thought we'd do a quick land acknowledgement on behalf of PHAC. We just want to recognize the Indigenous peoples across Takaranto, traditionally known as Turtle Island, as the original peoples of these lands. With gratitude, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which we work, live, and play is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. And it's funny, I'll just share very quickly. I just was up in Moosonee Moose Factory, way in Northern Ontario, and some amazing work going on in there with Aboriginal Head Start, as well as a CAPC CPNP program up there, and a very different way of life from the South. So very interesting to see, and I was grateful to be able to go there to get a deeper understanding and hopefully help influence some of the work that goes on up there from the government perspective. because I feel like that's our objective, Jack and I and the rest of our team, Blanca, who's on the call, is to try to remove the bureaucracy and help the community, because that's really what it's all about. And in terms of today's call, we're hoping to have a good sharing of the work that you do with fathers, father figures, in supporting the children and healthy child development. Years ago, there was a study done at the University of Guelph, which basically the bottom line was it showed definitively that having an involved father or father figure in a child's life improved all of their outcomes. It meant they would have better relationships in their lives. They were more likely to go on to higher education. They were more likely to make more money in their life. Not that that's the be all end all, but just that they would feel more secure in themselves and in the world. So it is important work, and I appreciate the work that everybody on the call does in supporting families. And today we're here to talk about the father aspect of that and how we can support healthy child development. Now, and it's funny because I'm not a very formal person, and I was thinking, okay, we're supposed to introduce Drew now, which of course we will. But then I'm like, okay, Jack, did you write some formal introduction for Drew? I
No,
didn't.
I'm not the most formal person either.
Well, what do you know? And no pressure at all, but I'm putting him on the spot. What do you know about Drew?
Well, I know Drew is a very big, if not the entire part of Dad Central. He is um, just a great resource for father knowledge. He runs a podcast as well, which is great to check out. Just a wealth of knowledge on fathers, father involvement, and hopefully have a lot of interesting stuff to share today on the subject.
And I've known Brian or Drew. I was going to say, because I was thinking about Brian from 6 years ago or so when I met Drew. And it was a great transfer from Brian to Drew. And I feel like Drew fit in really well, really early. He came to a meeting we had in Peterborough with a bunch of folks. And I know, because I always think of it in personal terms, like I'm a dad. I have two incredible kids who I can't believe are in their 20s now, but they are. Drew has, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, I'm going to say 3 kids, but we'll let Drew say the truth when he comes on. He is the director of Dad Central. I think of him as being an athlete because I know you were either a coach for athletes or you were an athlete, or I don't really know exactly, but he is the director of Dad Central. He is a great resource. He does a lot of training. And yes, he does do the podcast with the famous Dr. Vibe. And I don't know, that's a formal enough introduction. Drew is here. He's going to do a presentation for you on work with fathers. And after his presentation, then we'll get into a panel discussion. Drew, why don't we turn it over to you?
Well, thank you very much, Jack and Tim. Well done. Yeah, very well done. I'm not formal either. I'm more about conversations, like Ed and I say on the show. So I'm hoping that this is just another opportunity for us and everyone here involved to have a good conversation, share some information that offers value. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I hope that from being here, everyone can take away is at least one thing that you've learned, and then one thing that you can apply to your work and or your life that adds value. And I'm one of the, I guess, elements of my background is I'm a Maxwell leadership certified coach. I'm not sure if you're familiar with John Maxwell, but he is like the world #1 leadership trainer and teacher. And so I bring, I guess, a leadership lens to this. I think of my role as a father as first and foremost an opportunity to lead my family. But ultimately, as John Maxwell says, leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. And so I think, how can I have the most positive influence in the relationships that I have with the people who are closest to me? So that's a little bit about me. In terms of, again, what I hope you take from this experience is something of value. And really, I think obviously I'll present some information again in hopefully a conversational way. I'd love to hear some feedback from those who are in attendance. One disclaimer. And I'd love if you could do this for me. I'm going to change my view and then I'm going to share my screen. But I did a webinar for Families Canada recently. and it was on My Dad Matters, Engaging Dads to Impact Families. Can you please just give me a show of hands if you were actually at that webinar? Again, let me change my view so I can see as many people as I can. I see one hand so far. 2, 3. Uh-oh. So, and then those who I can't see at all, you can just use the raise your hand feature. So it looks like a very small number. I apologize for those 3. You're going to get some pretty much the same information today, but I'm going to be much shorter. And then we got the panel discussion, so to bring things to life. Let me share my screen. We'll go ahead and get started. And the one thing I'll ask while I'm doing this part of the presentation, and just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen now. Yeah. Okay, good. That's great. We're all on the same page there. Is that for the period of time, let's do our best to stay as engaged as possible. Put away those distractions, put our phones on silent or put them out of the way. And just, I'm going to be asking you some questions. So I'd love for you to actually use the chat. So I want to see feedback. And again, that helps this conversational nature happen. Do your best to stay as stationary as possible where you're at. If you need to, go ahead and put your camera off if you need to kind of go away, and that keeps, again, that allows everyone else to participate really well. And so we can all have full presence and engagement in the content. Because I'm going to go relatively quick, as quick as I can to fit our timelines, but also I think there's some really key insights that we might miss if we don't have our ability to sort of stay focused and engaged. And so that's just my request of everyone here today.
Before you get started, I have a question. If you're sharing your slides, is that something you're able to do?
I'm happy to share the slides after this. Absolutely.
And I think I will maybe spotlight you as well.
Sure.
Just during your presentation, so that there. Hopefully that's good for everybody.
Sounds
okay.
Good.
Thanks, Drew. Back to you.
No problem. Appreciate it. But I had the intro. Appreciate it. So let me just give a little short personal story, I'd say, to help you understand maybe why I might have some of this information and why it could be valuable. So first off, I'm a dad. This is our blended family before my daughter Eliana was born. She was born actually last April, so she's about 14 months right now. A lot of fun. She's walking, really chatty, not real words, but chatty as 14 months old are. So that's our family as it stands now. And Tim, it's 5 kids because I have 1 stepdaughter and then 4 biological kids. So just for the record. But I became involved with Dad Central back in 2019. And the reason I got involved is because I'd already started. I was a dad in 2013 with my first daughter's twins. And I found I was passionate about it, but I also found there's a lot of stuff from my past that came up as I became a dad. And after my son was born in 2015, life just got really challenging. And I wasn't quite sure why or what was going on. So I was really searching for resources, searching for a way to figure out how do I sort all this stuff out and be the engaged, positive father that I know I want to be and I'm really passionate about. So in 2018, 2019, I started my own, I'd say using leadership, my own coaching and training company for dads called Connected Dads. In that process, I felt it was valuable to really reach out to other dads or other people in the fatherhood space to build relationships, learn from them. That's how I met Brian Russell, because I reached out to him. And in fact, he didn't get back to me until like my 4th or 5th reach out. So I was persistent, thankfully. So we met, we talked, we had a great conversation. And then from there, he invited me to be involved with Dad Central. So in 2019, I started to get involved with Dad Central, and all the things that I felt internally and knew in terms of I felt it was right, was really deepened in terms of the research and the resources that Dad Central had amassed and built. And they had a huge library. And everything that I read, I was like, yes, yes. And then it deepened it by connecting it to research. And so all these things that I felt inside, but I couldn't necessarily put my finger on, they were really solidified by this research and by the resources that Dad Central had. So that started me to say, well, how can I get involved? And career-wise, I was looking for a little bit of a shift. And Brian said, I'm looking to actually transition out, Drew. So long story short, I jumped in. And since 2019, my focus has really been to how do we clarify the goal of Dad Central and the role of Dad Central? And how do we then create greater awareness? And then how do we serve the people we serve better? And digital, just before the pandemic hit, was my focus. Just so happened the pandemic accelerated it. And so that was the point of where I think we are now. The pandemic shifted us to more digital. And now since then, we've really focused on, we want to meet people where they're at. And most dads are looking for resources digitally through their phone primarily. And a lot of the research, market research we've done has solidified that. So a little bit of a longer story, but I want to share the background in terms of why, one, I'm passionate about this work, and two, why I think that I'm qualified to really speak to some of this information that we have added to since added to Dad Central, and that's what I'm going to be sharing today. Okay, so let's do one quick thing. I'd love for you to just take a moment, close your eyes, and picture a world where every dad is engaged with their family and positively influencing their children as they grow through every single stage. Just take a moment, picture what that would look like, primarily for a child as they grow. All right, I'd love it if anyone would be brave enough to just share. What did you see? And I don't know if they can unmute themselves or if they can just put it in the chat. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can repeat the question. So I wanted you to close your eyes. Imagine a world where every child had a positively involved father throughout every stage of their development. Yes, thank you. Lots of love and support. Help your children. So I want to know, what would you see if that were to happen? Okay. A couple answers. Yeah, a couple answers. Oh, so less stigma against dads. Yeah, for sure. Strong foundation, strong common kids. Okay, sorry. Someone wants to chime in. Go ahead.
Hi, and Kimiko, I just want to say, I think it would just kind of normalize it, and it would be great for the children. It would give more confidence to the dads. There would be more confidence in the children, more security. It would just build supports for everyone, and they could see that affection, and it would break down stereotypes, like those traditional roles of what a mom's to do, what is a dad to do, who's a stay-at-home parent, things like that. So
yeah, very well said. That's great. Thank you so much for that. And I see a bunch more coming in through the chat. All similar things: stronger foundations, more love and support, greater confidence for dads, less stigma, more that clarity around terms, or the removing the barriers between these sort of role differentiations. Moms do this, dads do this. And ultimately, I think what we're seeing is it benefits everyone. Benefits the children, it benefits the moms, benefits dads, benefits our communities as a whole. Absolutely. And so I think that's one of the main reasons that I'm so passionate about this work, is because truly, if you want to change the world, it actually starts at home. And the more that we have positively involved parents, moms and dads are crucial, right, to children's development, that it makes a huge difference for children as they grow, which ultimately has the greatest ability to change the future of our world. So I want you to, if there's only one thing that you take away from this presentation today, is that you have the ability to work with dads and help them become more engaged in fathering. I know it to be true. I've seen many great examples, and hopefully we'll talk more about it in the panel, where this is happening consistently and it's making a huge difference. And some of the data I share will, I think, validate why. So I want you to remember that if there's nothing else you take away, you can work with dads and you can help them become more engaged in fathering. Okay, I think I'm behind in my slides. And because of time, we're not going to do this. Normally, I draw a little bit more engagement, but I think I'll start with the first one, and then we'll go to the last one. So we'll do two of them. So I'd love to get you to put in the chat the answer to this question: the percentage of fathers whose own baby is the first they have ever held. Go for it. 88%, 32, 86, 50, 80%, 80, 75, 95. Okay, so I'd say we're trending towards much higher. Most of you believe that it's actually the majority of dads it's their baby is the first. Well, the facts would say it's actually about 20%, so much lower. Okay, I'm going to skip through the rest of these. You'll have to see. And the last question, percentage of fathers who pretend to be asleep when their child stirs in the night. 2%, 45, 50, 50, 98%, 40%, 90. We're all over the place here, but I think we're averaging sort of right in the middle. Well, the data says 60% of fathers pretend to be asleep when their child stirs in the night. I'm going to say that's because 40% of the dads don't want to tell the truth. I'm just teasing. And I would be curious to know how many moms and what the data says in terms of the number of moms who pretend to be asleep, right? Anyways, okay. The main point of this slide initially is really about this. Data tells it sometimes a very different story than what our perceptions might be. And our perceptions are actually significantly powerful, whether it matches data or not. And we most likely behave, have attitudes, and act out of our perceptions, not necessarily data. So the idea here is that if you would be open to the data that I'm about to share, that may ultimately shift some of your initial perceptions that may not be built off of what data says. That's the goal here. So if you'll be willing to consider that, then I think that's a huge win for us to be able to say, what does data actually say? So ultimately, again, my goal is that you take something away. Maybe you feel like after you've been able to apply it, you're up on the mountaintop. All right. 3 key things, and I've structured it based on questions that we often get are inherent in the professionals who receive our training. And some of them might be obvious questions that they've brought forward, or some of them might be more like underlying questions that they're maybe haven't brought forward, but they actually have lingering insight. So we want to try and answer those questions today. And we're going to do it by addressing these 3 topic areas. So let's start. The first question that many people may have, maybe I even had because I didn't have data to answer it, is do dads really make a difference? Up sharing about the research way back when. Maybe this question isn't as obvious, isn't as prevalent as it once was, but I think it's still worth addressing. And the way I'm going to address it is to share with you some of the data that we worked with Dr. Jessica Ball and her PhD student, Jessica Pratzazina, who did a study. They reviewed 245 research studies, primarily in North America, some in the UK, some in Australia, and some in New Zealand, from the research from 2015 to 2019, 245 studies. And in 2020, they produced a great research summary, like a meta-analysis of all the data. And from that data, we worked with the Public Health Agency of Canada to produce a series of infographics. Some of these I've shared before, but this is the most crucial one. The research was pretty unequivocal. Here are the benefits of father involvement. And there's a statement says at the top, current research reinforces that positive father involvement is strongly associated with positive outcomes for children. I don't know how many of you know research, but when they have the term strongly associated, it's pretty significant, I'd say, when it comes to research. So as you can see just from this slide, cognitive, social, emotional, physical, significant benefits when you have a positive involved father for children. All right. I don't need to go into each of those there, and that's only a fraction of what the research showed, but these are the most, I think, relevant, interesting, and important for us to be aware of and to be able to then take forward. So the other part of this is mothers also significantly benefit, as well as fathers when they're positively involved. So it's not just children significantly benefit, but so do the parental dynamic there as well. And so I think it's really clear. As you can see, the references at the bottom, again, only a small portion of it. There's a long list of actually reinforcers, but space-wise, we just put the most relevant ones there. So it's unequivocal. This research is clear across, multiple countries. Next, so as a result, if we can imagine, kind of like what we did just a few minutes ago, positive involved dads help moms, they help kids, and dads are also improved as well. So maybe you still have those questions. Do dads really make a difference? Well, based on this, it's pretty clear they do. So question number 2 that often comes up is, okay, great. We know dads are important. Many of the professionals we train, most of them in this field happen to be female. And so there are many doubts. There are questions. I'm not a dad. Do I even know what dads want? How do I engage with dads? The other interesting thing that came from the research that Dr. Ball did is many of the perspectives in the research on fathers weren't actually from fathers themselves. They were from third parties who interacted or engaged with fathers, many of them female. Many of them are also partners of fathers. And so fathers' perspectives are actually underrepresented in the data on fatherhood research. Again, kind of unique. So I think it's fair to say that there may be questions as well as doubts about how do I engage with dad if I don't really know what dad's thoughts are. And as we referenced at the beginning, sometimes our ideas are not based on facts or data, they're based on perceptions. And here's one of the points that I think I'll say, what honestly, but with, I think, a sense of sensitivity, we all have our own familiar growing up experiences. And many of those may have been with our own father. And many of those experiences may or may not have been the ideal. They may have left some personal, say, baggage or some personal wounds that we may still struggle with today. And I can say for sure, I still have that myself, right? So I'm just acknowledging that's the reality, I think, of what we all bring to our work and our lives. And so sometimes, again, the idea of are we clear on what fathers really are bringing to the table, or are we using our own experiences as the lens upon which we view fathers in general? So let's talk specifically about what are dads' perspectives and will they come to our program or facility? Some of the data, again, from this research with Dr. Jessica Ball, really gave a clear and unequivocal answer to this. So for my request is, how do you think Canadian dads view the role? Please go ahead and put something in the chat. Provider, very common. Secondary, okay. I'd love to dig more into that, Nicole, but I'll leave it at that for now. Provider, yep, common. Kamiko raised your hand. So Kamiko, just give me 1 second. We'll get a few more to throw things in there. Educator, okay. Yeah, do as do as mom tells them. I feel a lot of dads feel insignificant. Thank you. Yeah, great point. Leader, protector. Okay. Okay, Kamiko. Love to hear your thoughts as some more of these comments are coming in.
My thoughts it just aligns kind of with what people are saying in the chat. I would just actually shared with my coworkers yesterday that my husband would get really frustrated when he would take our children to the park when he was young, because he would get praised for taking them to the park. And he's like, do you praise moms when you see them take their kids? He's like, I'm just doing a simple thing with my child that you would expect someone to do. But he's praised for the simple thing, or just, doing basic care for his child, and told he was babysitting. And he thought, no, I'm not. I am their parent. My wife isn't, so I don't know why I am. Shouldn't be praised. He's like, but it's that division. And it kind of made him feel like a little bit lesser than.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's almost like a paradox, right? In one way, the individual who may be sharing that is trying to present it positively, praising, but it's received sometimes as, well, I'm doing what I care to do or what's important to me, but it also, how many moms are engaged or praised that way just for doing the work of being a parent. So it can create that, it's a unique paradox sometimes. Yeah, I think very well said.
Person or in themselves, that person compliment, because he knew it was like, oh, they're just saying something nice and recognized. He's like, as moms should be recognized too. He's like, but that just speaks to how our society views the roles of moms and dads.
I think you used that's very well said. I think you used a really important word, but I think it goes really well beyond just this topic of fatherhood. But you use the word divisive, right? There's this idea, and even the term division of labor, right? Well, actually, it's a I think unity in parenting, and unity in terms of ideas is something that's maybe rare and hard to really wrap your hands around. But I think that's really what, your would be the antithesis of this idea of divisiveness. But we're not going there today. So let's go back to this. Thank you for those comments, everyone. Appreciate it. How do Canadian dads view their role? Well, unequivocally, from the research, here's the statement taken straight from Dr. Bell's paper. Canadian dads care about their fatherhood role, and they want to be involved, supportive parents. And so maybe the dynamic that was just expressed is, this is a father's natural desire, but he's being praised when he's like, man, I'm just doing my job. I'm doing what I want to do, right? And so to be called out for it is maybe counter to what he's already feeling. So the other thing is this, our friends in Quebec, they've got an amazing organization, and I'm going to call them RVP for short, and they do amazing research. And so they had a study that was done with a lot of their English-speaking parents, and this is one of the key findings that I came upon very early on in my time with Dad Central, is that watching one's children grow, develop, and learn, as well as seeing one's children succeed and confront challenges are, and this is the key, by a wide margin, two primary vectors for satisfaction relating to paternity. What does that mean, that last part? It means that when dads see their kids like overcome challenges and begin to just learn and grow and change, that for them, when they see it, they're like, yes, that's like what being a dad really means. And so, and they feel such pride and satisfaction when they see their children, moving forward in these ways. And so the reason I share this is because when you understand what really, one, dads care, but two, what really drives their satisfaction to being engaged, then you can understand their motivations. You can understand also what might be getting in the way and causing frustration for a father. Are they not able to be involved in a way that they can see these things, or they can receive these? I'll say receive, because I think that's what they're saying, is that when this happens, they receive something of significant value for themselves. And so when you understand that, you can begin to move yourself from your world into the dad's world. And that's the idea of understanding a father's perspective. The other key things that we found is dads really only need 3 simple things to become more positively involved. I say simple, but truthfully, you'll see each of these are challenging. 1, dads need to have the skills and confidence to engage with their children. Confidence was mentioned early on. Many dads struggle with that confidence, either because of their own parental upbringing experience with their fathers, or maybe it's a relational thing where they're always kind of shut down by their partners and said, oh, don't do it that way, it's got to do this way. There are many various factors that could contribute to it, but dads really do struggle with confidence, and that's an important piece. The ability to balance work and home responsibilities. Provider, rightly or wrongly, and I don't think it's really wrong, but provider is still oftentimes the primary way that fathers will view their role. Traditional, and again, what you were raised, how you were raised contributes to that. Also, socially, culturally, there are many ideas that may not be based on the reality that every parent can provide. So, but that's often how they get their identity, which is somehow connected to the confidence. And then finally, they need to feel they have the financial and social resources needed to provide a caring, stable home. Why do I share this? Because if you can come and meet a father in any one of these 3 areas, you are going to then be supporting them to become more positively involved. So that's why I think it's important to understand these things, which relate to some of the barriers that fathers may experience in the process of being more involved. And then I'm going to quickly go through this, but this is, well, when we're talking about positive father involvement, like what does that actually mean? And so there's these ideas of this statement here, I think is most important. The quality of the relationship between father and child is the most influential factor impacting fathers, the idea of positive father involvement. So time, yes, relevant and important, but if a relationship can still be developed and have impact, even if there isn't as much time. And that can be fathers who are experiencing barriers, whether that be through separation or divorce, whether that be through incarceration, whether that through mental and emotional illness issues, whatever it is, the relationships can still be maintained and have an impact even without the level of time. And there's the three factors. So there's engagement, accessibility, and responsibility. Any one of those three. And the one in terms of that I think people should be mentioned around these fathers who are not maybe directly in the child's life as much as they want to be or can be is their attitude and commitment to their child. And so that can be examined by, I'll share this brief story just because I feel like it's important, because we work sometimes with fathers who are not always directly in the home with their child. A story of a father who was essentially estranged from his family. The child's mother essentially prevented him from seeing his daughter. And for 4 years, she was of the age where she had a cell phone. And so he would text her every single week, sending a message saying, hey, I'm thinking of you, I'd love to hear from you. And she never responded. So for 4 years, she either wasn't allowed or just chose not to. For 4 years, he continued doing that, continued. After 4 years, he kind of got to the point where, does it even matter? Does she even care? I don't even know. A few years later, ultimately what happened is that the father and daughter reconnected. And what she shared was that when he stopped texting her, it actually broke her heart. Even though she had never responded, it was so, she experienced such emotional, almost like he's not there, like he's not care, like what's going on. And it had a significant difference. But ultimately, again, they reconnected, they began repairing that relationship. But she shared about how important it was that those messages meant something to her, that it showed to her that he cared. And that made a significant difference for her through that period of time. So even without actual presence, fathers play and can have significant positive impact on their children. Okay. Last question, and I'll try and go through it pretty quickly. I'm not a male, so can I effectively work with dads? I'll share my embarrassing picture. And the reason I'm sharing this is because this is me when I was up in Sandy Lake, Ontario. I was invited by the Anishinaabe Nation, their family well-being program. So Sheila Marcinishan is on my left in the photo, to the far right, and then Margaret Wesley, she is on my right in the photo, but to the far left of the actual photo. They have been champions for father engagement within their 49 communities in Northern Ontario, and they have invited me to support them. And so for over 2 years, I've worked with them in various ways. This was one of those times. And because they obviously are a male, but they have been, I'd say, relentless in creating father engagement opportunities, father engagement training for their staff, many of their community coordinators, and they continue to work diligently at it because Margaret's belief in the value of positive involved fathers. And to Margaret's credit, she has a pretty difficult past with many of the males in her life. She has had 2 failed relationships, and she's a survivor of domestic abuse through both of them. Yet she's still ardent and passionate about the importance of the role of a father in the lives of children. So I just want to share, because as we've worked with them, there are really 3 key, simple, I use the word simple, best practices for engaging dads. And they're this. Number 1, identify and nurture a father's strengths. Number 2, help them feel included, valuable, and important to their child's development. And finally, number 3, just believe in them. And I'll end off with this story that when I say believe in them, it's not like a, fictitious, just a nice idea. It's not, like, if you, there's many different quotes, but I want to share a research study from a guy by the name of Robert Rosenthal. If you've heard this before, bear with me. If you haven't, hopefully it'll be enlightening. I first came across this story in Sean Acor's book. I think it's called Happiness Equation or something like that. And it was fascinating to me because what they did in this study is they took a classroom full of students and the teachers. And so they told the teachers, hey, we have gone and tested these students in your class. And what we've identified is that there's a group of these students who they're on the verge of an intellectual boom. Their IQs are going to shoot through the roof. They're your best students. And so they said, but here's the catch. You cannot teach them any differently. You've got a full classroom. You've got to teach everyone the same. You got to make sure that they all get the learning and development they need. And so they watched these students and the teachers in their classrooms for the next year. And then what they did is they retested the whole class again at the end of the year. And sure enough, the test results really aligned with what they had identified prior to the start of this year. Hey, these students with these names, they absolutely scored off the charts. They were higher than the rest of the class. Here's the catch. When they started this experiment, there was nothing special about the students that they had named. They were just like every other student in the class. They were average. So what happened? What happened is that the people who were influential in their life, the teachers, believed that the students were about to be special. And what they identified in going back and looking through the record is that it's actually because those teachers believed that they were important or better, that they actually treated them slightly different in almost imperceptible ways. They touched the students positively, way back when you could touch students, more often than the other students. They were a little more patient and understanding with the students who they were believed to be more special. These almost small, minute by minute, almost imperceptible differences over time led to those students actually performing at a higher level than they naturally had. So I share that to say it's not just, I don't know, I'd say it's science, it's true. And the way that we interact and engage with people in these moment by moment, day by day interactions can and does make a significant difference. Okay, I think I went over time, I apologize, but I hope that was a positive way to end the content that I've shared and give us something that we can build off of. So thank you very much. Final thing I'll say is I love to share obviously about this. If you ever have a need or want Dad Central to come and be involved in your programming, whether it be training, whether it be engagement, whether it be consultation, whether it be just delivering a father-focused workshop for the people, the fathers or families in your community, I'm always open and looking forward to those opportunities. So thank you.
It's great. Thank you so much, Drew. And everybody knows where he is. So if you're looking for him, you can find him and help have him come to your community. It was interesting as you were doing the close your eyes exercise. I thought of my own father, who was a great man. He was a kind man, very intellectual. I grew up in Chicago. He helped Martin Luther King. He actually worked with directly and did open housing marches. Because at that time, if you were Black, there was a line and you couldn't live or look at houses across that line. So fought to change that and worked with Vietnam veterans like draft dodgers and all this stuff. Like he was a great leader. But as Drew was talking, I was thinking, you know what, though? He was not perfect at all. Like as a kid, he often wasn't there. Emotionally, it was later in life, literally, my sister, my mom, and I taught him to hug because he never did. I know he loved me, but he never said, I love you. So it's interesting. And I just think when we're working with humans, when we're working with dads, like it's not, you don't have to be a perfect dad. And I feel like people have this pressure. Oh, I got to be a perfect dad. I got to be a perfect mom. I mean, you hopefully you have to be kind. You have to do everything you can, but being there is so critical and some of the other stuff that Drew mentioned. But I just thought of that aspect of you don't have to be perfect. So we do have an amazing panel today. So we should get right into that, Jack. And question number one, and because I was going to do introductions, but I think we'll do introductions as part of the question. So the first question, please introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself, your project, what work you do with supporting dads. And if you offer dad specific CAPC programming, let us know, or if it's more general family engagement, let us know. And Jack, what order should we do this in? Like Drew was just talking, so it shouldn't be Drew number one. Who do we go number one?
Well, the order I have down here, why don't we just go with that? So first we will hear from Brian Desjardins.
Can everybody hear me? I usually have problems with my speaker.
You're a
Okay.
little low.
But we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So my name's Brian Desjardins. I work for St. Mary's Home under CAPC programs in Ottawa. I've been here for 22 years. So I've been around for quite some time. I remember Jason from a long time ago as well. Glad to see there's still people that are in the field that are caring enough. There's been lots of ups and downs over this time of dad wanting to be involved, how to get them involved, keeping them involved. Pandemic has thrown a huge rift into father involvement for in-person, so they are going more towards their cell phones and that. But the programs we're running here, we're still doing a father-child drop-in once a week for dads and children. So it's a play group with a meal. Since the pandemic, the numbers have come down with that because we found other fathers were engaging fathers to come into the program and participate with it, where we don't quite have that same dynamics at the moment with the dads that are here and and who they interact with. We do Super Dad, Super Kids. We're trying to develop a new program for dads. It's almost like a baby basics, where it's more of an introduction program for them to come in to learn more about pre and postnatal so that they can help support their partners, their children, as well as themselves. We're in the process of doing that. We are also finally got involved with a program called Safe Care of the United States, which has 3 components. And my role with that right now, with who I'm working with, is trying to work with mom and dad at the same time to give them the same messaging so that they can be on board with one another rather than alienating one another from this is my role, this is your role. So trying to connect them that they're together. That's about it.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. And Brian, did you say it was Safe Care? Was that what you were talking about of the U.S.?
Yeah, it's called Safe Care.
Okay.
It's a 3-module, 18-week, up to 18-week program covering health, safety, and parent-child interaction or parent-infant interaction.
Thank you, Brian. Next on my order here, we have Kelly Osadchuk.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly. I'm a registered early childhood educator up in Thunder Bay. I work in an early on child and family center. I've been doing this for about almost 7 years now. And before that, I was in childcare for about 12 years. So doing that for a while. I am a father of 2 myself. My daughter's about to be 13, the lovely teenage years. And my son is 15, just starting his first job. So that's a new experience and stuff. So it's always been interesting to bring that in to our programs. We do a dad's group program on Wednesday evenings here that up until recently has been very well attended, but we find we usually take a break in the summer because whether it's soccer, t-ball, activities like that, we all find that the fathers love to be outside with their children. So a lot of times come June, we will bring our program outside because they just would rather be outside on nice days rather than inside, even though we have a lovely program here with a big gym space and such to run around in. They prefer to be outside, and we're just seeing a lot of dads coming out to all of our programming in general. So we're very grateful that they're coming out and just participating lots in general.
I was waiting for you to unmute, Jack, and you didn't.
I'm struggling
put me on the
to
spot.
click it. It was
Thanks, Kelly. I haven't been up to Thunder Bay in a while, but it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that outdoor stuff in the summer, definitely Canada. We like to be outside in the summer, and that is great for for dads as well.
And we only get it for about 6 weeks in Thunder Bay, so enjoy it while it's nice.
6 weeks, and do you have like 1 week without black flies? I don't know what it is.
3 days tops.
That's awesome. Thank you. Why don't we go over to Jason Brock in lovely Peterborough.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Brock. As Tim mentioned, I'm with the Peterborough Child and Family Centers. We have CAPC and CPNP. We're also an early on program. First and foremost, I'm a dad of 4. I was a teen dad, and so did that for a little while, managed to pull through, and found myself in a blended family 14 years later and had more children. So I just mentioned all those things because those are the lenses I bring to the programs I offer as well. Some of those lived experiences, so to speak. So an interesting evolution of the programs we offer here in Peterborough. Father involvement is something that we as an organization have been involved in. It predates me, and I've been here 25 years. So we're, there's a great source of pride for that as an organization. But 20 years ago, we developed a program just for dads. We consulted with the community, and dads were really wanting programming just for them because we had drop-in programs for families, and when dads would come into those programs, it was 95% moms. So dads were saying that they wanted a program just for them, where they could bring their children and hang out and do all those great things. And so we developed the Me and My Dad program, and it was every Saturday, and it was very well attended. At our highest points, we get 60, 70 dads and children here every Saturday. And so it was very well attended. Interesting thing that happened, yes, through the pandemic's obviously part of that as well, as it is for a lot of people. Dads started to kind of get more comfortable in our community to find their way into those other programs as well, where moms were primarily the ones that came to those programs. And so they were, coming to those other drop-ins through the week. And so there's been this kind of interesting evolution. And so it got to the point most recently for the last year or so, where we made the decision as an organization to kind of open up our Saturday program to moms and dads. And because dads, as I say, they were coming to all the programs. And that's kind of been where we're at right now. More recently, as a community, we have organizations that are reaching out to us and saying, we'd like to do some partnerships with programming focusing on father involvement. And so, our public library and other organizations like that are wanting to do programs for dads. And so there's this interesting partnership element at a community level for positive father involvement that's happened most recently. So that's my long-winded story.
Thank you, Jason. It's interesting to see that shift over time. And we'll get into that later on in the questions as well. And lastly, let's hear from Drew. And we've heard an introduction already, but absolutely take it away.
Thanks. I'll just speak to, Dad Central was built to really provide support through training and resources for CAPC CPNP programs. And so that's how we've continued to do our work. And so how we engage with dads since I've become involved has been through the digital medium. So we wanted, a blog was already well established as part of Dad Central, and that was really, I think, focused on dads. And so we continued having a regular blog. But in June of 2022, we initiated the Dad Central podcast. And so the podcast has been the way that we've continued to really engage with dads. And also we've created a few digital resources, newer digital resources, like we have our 7 steps to calmer parenting. It's really combating the idea that, dads sometimes struggle to maintain their equilibrium and result to yelling as a way to engage with their children. And so the research was pretty clear in terms of the impact of yelling on children. And so we wanted to help support dads' growth in there. So we've got a 7-step guide to calmer, more peaceful parenting. We have developed a paternity leave checklist. So fathers, the engagement and growth in paternity leave coinciding with March of 2019 when the government of Canada introduced the 5 weeks of daddy days. So sometimes paternity like there wasn't much, so we created a paternity leave checklist, really just give dads a list of next steps once you decide you're going to take a paternity leave, and we tried to build off of that. So that's how we really engage with fathers. And then in June of 2023, we created a program called Dad Mentor, and Dad Mentor is an online virtual safe space, we'll say, for dads that is really focused on when I talked about that slide of what dads need, it's really focused on the skills and confidence. So we've got most of our resources that have been created over the years with Dad Central as part of the Dad Mentor membership, we'll say, but we also have created a whole new thing called the Dad's Roadmap. And it's really combating and helping dads move from feeling stressed, tired, overwhelmed, uncertain, and having some of these self-doubts to ultimately a place of feeling much more calm, much more connected, and much more confident in their ability to engage with their children. So that Dad's Roadmap is built off of essentially a detailed 5-module learning program. So within each module, there's like 3 sub-modules, and they're short 10 to 12, sometimes 15-minute lessons that are built off of the science and the research and leadership development and all these core pieces that really help dads become equipped to face some of these challenges and feel like they're supported, feel like they are known and understood. And then we supplement that Dad Mentor with an actual gathering. So we do virtual meetups every month, sometimes 2 a month, and where you can come and we connect. And we have a very simple structure. There's accountability as part of that structure. You identify one action step that you want to take to move more positively towards move your fatherhood more positively, and then we check in on that every month. So how did it go last month? How'd you do in terms of the one action you wanted to take? And so the final thing is we invite guests, we guest speakers or experts to deliver a masterclass, sort of 35 to 40 minutes. And then if dads attend live, they can ask their question live. If they watch the recording, they're all housed in like a huge library. So that's how we really engage right now and offer dad specific programming to help support them.
Thanks, Drew. Nicole, we have a question or a hand up. We don't have a hand up. Maybe that was just a thumbs up.
Sorry, I hit it by accident.
Oh, that's fine. I do it all the time. Thank you, Drew. And it's interesting as we're getting into this discussion, it strikes me as like, as human beings, I wish we could just all see each other as human instead of what gender you are and what background and whatever. But it's fascinating to me. Drew mentioned earlier RVP in Quebec, which does work with fathers. And actually, Quebec funds work with fathers a lot better than the rest of the country. I find in general, Quebec tends to have like European, like social, like they tend to look forward a lot more, be more progressive. So I appreciate the work that everybody does and everything I'm hearing on this call, that with the tiny bit of funding that PHAC provides, this work is happening with fathers. I wish there was more funding, but that's my editorial thing. And it was interesting, Drew, too, just talk about social media and stuff like that, sort of dovetails nicely into our next question, which is, and actually Brian did touch on this when he was talking too, have you seen any changes in your work over the past few years, including impact of the pandemic? How have things changed in your work with fathers? And I don't know, who do we go in the same order, Jack? What do we do? I'm looking for guidance here.
Yeah, I think, or if any of the panelists want to jump in right away, but aside from that, why don't we can do the same order maybe? That'll keep things flowing, or Jason looks like he's ready to go there.
Yeah, just because I kind of touched on it very briefly there at the beginning, the evolution of the programming here in Peterborough, in our community around so 20 years ago, dads were identifying that they wanted a space just for them, and they wanted a program where they could come with their children and just be dads and hang out. We're very lucky. We're very fortunate in Peterborough. We have our staff are very multidisciplinary teams. So we bring lots of different lenses of professionalism, so we can add that element to the program. But dads also wanted, just to be able to kind of hang out and spend time with their children. We always add things like infant massage very informally, if the dads are asking for things like that. But that's what they wanted. And so, 20 years ago, we did create that program just for them. And as time went by, dads were feeling, we talked about that, building up dad's confidence to kind of, feel comfortable to be the dad that they want to be. And they were feeling comfortable to infiltrate other programs where it was primarily moms. And so that's been something that's been happening more recently. The pandemic's been part of that. Has been a contributing factor, rather. So people are wanting to kind of, when we open back up and we're in person again, people were quite happy to go to programs if they were able to, whether regardless of moms, dads, or what have you. So we kind of had a bit of a change where we had to kind of pivot to opening up all our programs, all our drop-in programs for moms and dads, and so that's kind of been our progression. But as I say, more recently, now we have community members saying, hey, we would like to continue, offering programming for dads. What kind of partnerships can we offer? And so it's great to see that community engagement for and partnership building at the community level. So I think those are some things to kind of tuck in your back pocket for people to be thinking about for your community.
Well, thank you for sharing, Jason. So why don't we go to Brian next? So just how your work has changed, and you touched a bit on this earlier as well.
Yeah, the pandemic really did throw a huge, sorry, I can't think of the word. It prevented people from coming in, seeing people in person. We had to try to quickly switch over to Zoom calls, or we implemented Cooking with Dads program over Zoom instead, that they could all come in, they could buy the ingredients, we could supply them if needed. Some did that well, some watched once or twice. So we decided to do it over Zoom, but have one come in so that they could actually see a dad participating in person with me. It kind of worked for a little bit, and then it went off the wayside a bit. But I think the ability to adapt quickly helped keep some of them involved with this particular program, or at least giving them the courage to pick up the phone, give us a call, give me a call, ask them questions, where they may not have seen my face before because of the pandemic. Now they had, because of this installed. So that's one way that we adapted quite quickly, and we did that with quite a few different programs, whether it be for moms and dads, just moms, just dads. We did virtual places to try keeping them engaged. And then with the safe care, there was 7 of us initially trained in 2021, 22, that allowed us, with the pandemic, wearing masks, protective gear and all that, to actually go into their residence to actually deliver a person one-on-one or one-on-two in-person program, which they seemed to enjoy. They didn't have to leave their own residence, take a bus, public transportation. There was lots of fear around it. So that has allowed us to engage with them in person, not just over Zoom. So that was one of the ways that we had to try to change, and we did. We adapted to it.
Well, thank you, Brian. Oh, sorry, Tim, go ahead.
No, thanks, Brian. It's interesting to me how, because one of the most important things I see in the work of CAPC CPNP over the years is peer-to-peer support. So you get a dad meeting another dad saying, "Oh, my life sucks. It's such a pain with my partner, and I don't know, my kids are driving me crazy. Work is hard." And then you meet with somebody and they say, "Oh, well, what I'm doing for this is that," or, "Oh, these guys are hiring," or that peer-to-peer support is so critical, and it just happens organically. It's interesting, like, how does that happen, like when it becomes a virtual situation where you're doing online, the Zoom stuff or whatever? It's a very different world, just sort of popped into my head. Why don't we go to back to Kelly?
Yeah, it's one of the big changes, especially over COVID and stuff, is Thunder Bay, like a lot of communities in Ontario, has a big shortage of childcare spaces. So we're finding a lot of families are really juggling their work schedules and such to be able to be working opposite schedules so that because they can't find childcare to begin with, and that when the dads are home with the children, they're really searching out programming in general. Like they're coming out to everything that we offer. If like we have some dads that they're up during the day and they work at night, and their partners or such have the opposite schedule, and basically any program we offer, they're showing up because they're seeking out the programming for their children, because not only are they wanting to fill the day, but they recognize the importance that our programming can provide for them, and they enjoy. Like we have dads come that know each other from or know other parents from other programs, so they'll come in like, "Oh, hey, you're here today," and there's this all little community that, because they all seem to go to the same programs. And along with that is we're seeing a big shift in the number of grandfathers that are coming out to our programs. And not even like just grandparents coming together, but grandfathers by themselves that are a primary care during the day, since there's no, as I said, a lot of times there's a lack of childcare for them to have. So these grandfathers are stepping up, and you hear a lot of them tell a lot of stories of oftentimes not trying to make up for, but they weren't happy with how much time they were able to give their children. So they're very intent on giving their grandchildren as much as their time as they can. And they'll come out, and I would say half of our families in a day are grandparents, and I would say of the grandparents, there's probably about 70% of it is a grandfather either by themselves or with their partner, which is great to see. And they're not only coming out with their children, but they're with their grandchildren, but they're looking for resources and looking for help, and they're getting in there. Like we have some that come in, and it's almost like they're a program grandparent, because they come in, they might not have even been playing with theirs. They're playing with all the children. The children are comfortable just going up to them and playing with them, and it's just wonderful to see.
No, that's great to hear, and great to see that community being built, and like we were saying, that peer-to-peer support, that's so important. So now why don't we head over to Drew?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Great points everyone's made, and yeah, I see that too. The one point I'll talk about is, dads have often, and maybe that still exists in some respect, but what I'd say is a little bit different now. And I mean, obviously the pandemic, thrust isolation upon everyone, which only deepened it. So I think two factors that I'll talk about briefly. So one is, I think just culturally or across society in general, I think fathers have become more vocal. I shared that research about dads care about their father role and want to be supportive and involved. And I think you see a lot more of it in traditional, professional circles. Will say, sometimes it would have been frowned upon to even talk about going on paternity leave. It would have been like, a career suicide if you took extra time off, or it's like, what, you want flexibility in your schedule so you can be at your kid's soccer game? What are you talking about? So I think that conversation is shifting to recognize, as a result, good, I think, of the pandemic is that we all have lives. We all have things, and really we're asking what's really important, what matters most here. And I think a lot of fathers are saying, you know what, my family really matters to me. My time with my kids really matters to me. And so I think those are some positive things that are shifting, post-pandemic. And I see it a lot more in terms of just, dads posting about their paternity leave journey, or posting about, hey, welcome my son or my daughter. So I think that's good. And that can actually combat some of that feeling of isolation. Hey, well, other dads, they care about their father, and I do too, but I was afraid to even mention it. So in some respects it does. But at the same time, I think there still exists pockets of isolation. There are pockets of areas where dads really don't have a safe space or a place where they can actually communicate their desires or their struggles around fatherhood. So I think that still is relevant. And I'd say the other thing is, I think that I'll just leave it at that. We can move to the next one.
Thanks, Drew. And I don't know, can we mix it up a little bit? I'm wondering, because we had these Zoom poll questions, and Sydney, the one that strikes me as interesting just because it's a future looking thing is the last Zoom poll question: what topics would you like us to explore in future events related to father involvement? And the reason I'm thinking about posting that is we talked as this group, and before we set up this call, maybe we should have more than one of these a year. And I was going to at the end anyways, but I do appreciate Blanca and Sydney, because really they were the initiative initially to get this call happening a few years ago. I believe this is the 27th annual Father Involvement Father's Day call. But I'm just curious about future topics, things that you would like. So, okay, so what topics would you like us to explore? And they give a short answer. Is that what happens?
Yeah, you can type in a few words, I believe, which is, I believe, new for Zoom polls to be able to do short answer questions. So more new things. And so hopefully everybody can see that and has an opportunity to. So far, we've got a few responses, 4, so maybe we'll leave it up a little bit longer. Let me know when you'd like to close it, Tim.
Okay.
We've got 7 responses.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to think if we're pretty pressed for time. I don't know if we can get one more question to our panel or not. What do you think, Jack? Do you feel lucky?
I think we could do one more question, or we could even open up to the room if they have any questions for the panelists based on what we've heard so far, if we wanted to do that.
All right. Well, why don't we close the poll, Sydney, and then we can all look at the results and see if that helps to lead the conversation.
Are you seeing the results there now?
No, I don't. I don't know if other people do.
It just says 100% responded.
If we're a host or co-host, I don't think we'll see it.
Okay. Oh, well, I've got it here. I can show it quickly. Okay. Are you seeing my screen there?
It's kind of tiny, but maybe you can.
I'll read it out.
Sure.
More mental health discussion, timing of events that support dad's attendance, an AMA for successful father programming running where we can come in and pose our problems, struggles, successes, and receive guidance. I don't know if I know what an AMA is. More specifics about how to run a father group, times that work best, new to CAPC, and I would like to start a fathering group. So those are great.
No, that is great. And I would suggest to people on the call, if you are new to father involvement, like you can look at the people on this call at the panel. You can reach out to them. You can reach out to Drew, and Drew has his hand up. So why don't we go over to him?
I just wanted to address those last two in particular. That is what our My Dad Matters training does. It equips you with the how-tos, I'd say. It's got best practices, and there's two ways you can do that. So we can deliver that virtually, or there's the My Dad Matters online certification. This was built in partnership. It's called the My Dad Matters Toolkit. It was built in partnership with so some early on staff built with Public Health Agency of Canada funding, Psychology Foundation of Canada. So built with a lot of partners, and it really does walk you through step by step how to actually do that, and gives you the research foundations, as well as there's I think it's called a democracy. It's like a planning. So you can actually evaluate based on your context. So it helps you identify specifically for your population how to move forward, and whether that is father friendly or dads only, which Jason was sharing about. So anyways, we can share a link to that after, but that's I just want to quickly address those because I feel like it could hit some of those questions.
Acknowledging that I only showed 4 responses on the screen, there was a scroll down option. So Lee, thanks for pointing that out. And I pasted the remaining responses in the chat.
And Kelly's got his hand up as well.
Kind of add on the same subject that Drew was touching on. Just talk to your community. The dads will tell you what they're looking for in a program, when they want to have it, what they want to see, and follow their lead, because it's in the end, it's their program. What they get out of it will be what they're looking for. So the more you can enhance it based on what they're saying, and it also doesn't hurt to if you have some dads that we find that are often nervous to come out right off the bat. If you have any programming that is, say, off hours, like evenings or weekends, that are for the whole family, I often encourage partners to say, well, bring dad out to that with you. They get comfortable in that program, then they might be more willing to come out by themselves.
And I would say too, if you're new to the CAPC CPNP community, if this topic is new to you, again, you can go to dadcentral.ca for information on father involvement. You can look at the panelists or other people that you saw on this call. And if you have not yet gotten into them, there are zone calls for CAPC CPNP, which are a great way to get plugged into the community, to hear what other groups are doing throughout the province, especially in your zone or area. And you can reach out to Jack, myself, or whoever your program consultant is to help connect you with that stuff. Jason.
Yeah, to Kelly's point as well, here in Peterborough years ago, we had a number of dads who were attending programs, and we formed a dad's leadership community practice and to help guide programming. So it was the dads that were actually coming to the program to kind of, discuss what topics they wanted to chat about and what kind of programming they wanted. And also it hit the aspect of that peer mentoring. So these were the guys that were coming to programs, and for those dads who were new or not quite sure how to navigate where they fit in, those were the dads that were kind of down there and meeting those dads. So that was another thing that we did.
And I don't know if there's a way to do it, Sydney. I'm just thinking in the chat, there's, like Lee just mentioned, Web Connects. Jason had a mental health thing for men there. The Dad Central website. Like, there's so many links or mentions that were in the chat. I don't know if there's a way, like after this call, do you still have access to that chat? Or
for sure, we could send out a follow-up email with the resources that were mentioned.
Okay, yeah, you're reading my mind. That would just be great because, again, a lot of people may know this stuff, but if they don't, it'd be great to have sort of a one-stop. Oh, okay, that's the things that were mentioned on the call. It is Friday. It is nice outside. I'm mindful of time. And I think, Sydney, we do, as we're sort of wrapping up here, you've got an event survey you wanted to post. Should we do that now, or should I thank people first? I don't know which order to do it in. And
Well,
now
I'll tell
Nicole's
you,
got her hand up.
I am going to try this Zoom
Nicole doesn't
event.
have her hand up. Sorry. You just like pushing buttons. Can't blame me.
What should happen when we close the meeting is that Zoom should pop up with a event survey in your browser. So I'm trying that.
Oh, so
And
it's a post chat.
that's right. It's a post-event survey that should pop up automatically. Jason?
I did come to the meeting significantly early to see if it would actually line up with the way I would, and I closed out of it and it did come up, so it should work.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
So I would encourage everybody just to take a minute or so to fill out that closing survey just to help us guide the work and
Yes.
everything.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate Drew coming out and doing that presentation. And I know people did ask for it, and he said he would share that, so we'll be able to see that. And we have mentioned dadcentral.ca, but again, have a look at that. And I'm sure we can list the podcast as well, so people can see a link to that if you want to see that as well, or if you want to send that link to your the fathers in your community. And also thank you to Drew, Kelly, Brian, and Jason as our panelists. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to come out, and also, for the work you do on a weekly or daily basis. But thank you for your time and for your knowledge of what you are doing out there. And for everybody who attended, really appreciate you taking the time and helping the families that you do help, and thinking of the men, the fathers, the Jishes in your community. And Blanca's got her hand up now.
Sorry, very quickly, I just wanted to wish, remind us that Father's Day is this Sunday. So, hug that father figure. And I certainly appreciate all the dads that are here today. And really appreciate this time that we take each year to celebrate dads and celebrate the work that you do with dads. So thank you all.
And again, thank you to you, Blanca. And thank you to Sydney as well for your help, your expertise, your guidance, and just your initiative to get this thing done. It's interesting because as a parent, it ends up being a competition, and it shouldn't be. And Drew can tell you better why it shouldn't be. But it's like, I already did the dishes, or I changed the diapers, or that survey where it's like pretending to be asleep, but you're part of the team, and that's why ideally that's the way it should be, but it is not easy having kids or even working with families. Jack, come on, we're closing. I'm sure you got words of wisdom. I don't want to have the last word. What's your last word?
I don't know, just want to say absolutely thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. We really appreciate all the panelists for coming on. And just, yeah, it's been a great discussion, especially in light of Father's Day this weekend. So taking my dad out to dinner tomorrow, so looking forward to that. I hope you're all doing something special for the fathers or father figures in your lives as well. And yeah, just once again, thank you to everyone for coming on and sharing everything that's been said so far. And yes, Sydney, absolutely. I think that email with all of the resources that have been shared, absolutely, for sure, send that out. Some really great knowledge to be shared and in what's been shared already. So I don't know if we want to wrap it up there, if there's any other final thoughts. But yeah, thank you absolutely to everyone for coming.
Absolutely. And one final shout out, well, to Jack and Tim for leading us through, and also to our planning committee, Blanca, Jack, Tim, and Jason. And I think that's all the thank yous. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day and a great weekend. And we will see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.